With the discovery of anesthetics, surgery had taken another huge leap forward. But despite this and the earlier breakthroughs, half of the patients who went into the operating theatres died. Finding out why became the obsession of a most unfortunate Hungarian doctor, Ignác Semmelweis. In 1847, 29-year-old Semmelweis began work in the maternity unit of the Vienna General Hospital. All around him, a mystery was playing out.
It's Vienna's leading hospital, but hundreds of women every year who go there to give birth develop a fatal condition called childbed fever. Swollen abdomen, multiple abscesses, fever, and then death. Nobody knows what causes it, and nobody knows how to stop it. In the hospital, there are two units, one run by midwives, the other by doctors. If you are unlucky enough to be in the one run by doctors, where Semmelweis works, then you are 9 times more likely to die from childbed fever than if you're in the hands of the midwives. Why?
Semmelweis was greatly puzzled by this discrepancy. He became obsessed with solving the mystery, trying everything from changing the way the women were lying to changing what they ate. But nothing worked.
Everything was unexplained. Everything was dubious. Only the great number of victims was an indisputable reality.
Semmelweis and his fellow doctors dissected the dead mothers, but they found nothing. Nonetheless, day after day, he visited the mortuary before returning to the wards.
He works harder and harder, but women just keep on dying. He is depressed, he is confused, he is perplexed. And then there is a vital breakthrough.
A friend, Jakub Kolečka, professor of forensic medicine, cut his finger during an autopsy and was dead days later. Distraught and desperate to know what killed him, Semmelweis dug out the post-mortem report on Kolečka's death.
The report revealed that when he died, his friend had a swollen abdomen, multiple abscesses, and fever.
The same things that had killed so many of the mothers.
My mind in this excited state registered with irresistible clarity the identity of the disease Kolečka had died of, and the disease I had seen cause the death of so many hundreds of women in childbed.
For Semmelweis, this must have been an astonishing and utterly appalling moment. Could it be that he had finally solved the mystery, that he had actually discovered that the killer was him, that he and his fellow doctors had somehow been carrying on to the wards death on their hands?
It was a shocking, heretical thought, but it would finally explain why being delivered by a midwife was so much safer than being delivered by a doctor. Midwives didn't do autopsies. They didn't carry deadly matter on their hands. Without consulting his superiors, Semmelweis posted a notice on the door of the clinic, ordering all the doctors to wash their hands in chloride of lime. It was not a popular move.
The doctors found all this faddish hand washing tedious, pointless, time-consuming. Semmelweis had to hang around the wards day and night to force them to do it properly.
But he was determined.
Semmelweis's hand-washing regime now began to produce spectacular results. Death rates from childbed fever plunged down from more than 10% to less than 3%. Dozens of women who would otherwise have died now lived. This must have been the happiest period of Semmelweis's life. But he was living on borrowed time, because he had not convinced the doctors. He had no rational or scientific explanation of how dirty hands could cause death.
The women were dying from what we now call septicemia, blood poisoning. Semmelweis had no idea of its cause. He just knew he was onto something. However, with some simple equipment that Semmelweis didn't have, I can show you what he was up against.
Now I have over here some agar jelly, and what this is going to be useful for is I'm going to dip my hands in it, roll them around, and 3 days ago I did exactly what I've just described, and this was the result. Can you see that? Isn't that lovely? There are lots of little colonies on there, in fact tens of millions of bacteria. One lot is apparently a relative of the bacteria that causes MRSA. If that got into an open wound, it would do you no good at all. Now, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some bleach. This is the equivalent of chloride of lime. Right. Give them a good scrub. Oh, lovely. Now what I need to do is I get another one of these and I dip my fingers again, roll them around. And you can see much improved. There are colonies there. There are far fewer of them.
Semmelweis knew dirty hands caused disease, but he couldn't explain why. And without a proper explanation, his colleagues just laughed at him. The idea that a bit of dirt around your fingernail was enough to kill you was ridiculous.
They live in a world in which they've never thought of germs. They know that if you look at a wound through a microscope, you will see lots of tiny things crawling around in it. They believe that they are spontaneously generated. And they regard them as harmless. And it's irrelevant. They pay no attention to them.
Semmelweis's boss and his fellow doctors were sick and tired of his ideas. So when his contract came to an end, it was not renewed, and he went home in disgrace to Budapest.